It all started in July 1999. The world was abuzz with prophecies. But something even stranger happened. Labyrinths suddenly appeared all over the globe. These weren't just small caves. They were vast, extra-dimensional spaces popping up everywhere. In oceans, on mountains, even inside people's homes. Inside these labyrinths, people found two major things. Monsters, creatures straight out of fairy tales and games. Resources, abundant rare metals, unknown elements, and magical items that seemed to defy explanation. The world rejoiced. These magical items included things like medicines that could regrow limbs and cure incurable diseases, crystals that showed the future, amulets protecting against misfortune, makeup tools that could transform your appearance, even food that granted perpetual youth and longevity. On top of that, magic stones dropped by monsters proved to have countless uses, from fuel to fertilizer, kicking off an economic boom. Initially, the monsters inside the labyrinths never left, and most were vulnerable to modern weapons like guns. Armies worldwide began exploring, going deeper and deeper in search of more treasures. But then, disaster struck. The deeper they went, the more powerful the monsters became. The US Army, venturing too far, encountered phantom-type monsters. These creatures were impervious to physical attacks, leading to devastating losses. 10% of the entire US Army was wiped out. Other developed nations, learning from this, halted their labyrinth explorations. About 6 months later, a new catastrophe occurred, the First Angol War. Monsters, thought to be contained, spilled out of the labyrinths and attacked civilians. While military bases around the labyrinths helped limit the damage, the phantom-type monsters once again proved unstoppable, causing widespread fear. Luckily, these particular undead monsters vanished with the sunrise. Investigations revealed the shocking truth. Angol War only happened in countries that stopped hunting monsters in their labyrinths. Countries like China and Russia, which continued their hunts, didn't experience it. This led to a critical hypothesis. If you don't regularly hunt monsters, they will overflow from the labyrinth. The First Angol War also brought another groundbreaking discovery: how to use monster cards. These rare cards, depicting monsters, were initially a mystery. But during the Angol War attacks, some people accidentally found out their use. Drop a bit of your own blood on the card. Strongly wish for the monster to appear. The monster on the card would materialize and obey its master. Researchers hadn't figured this out because these cards largely only worked inside the labyrinths, or during special events like Angol War. The discovery of monster cards was a game changer. Monsters summoned from cards could use magic, providing a countermeasure against the previously invulnerable phantom-type monsters. Plus, these cards created a barrier for the master, taking all damage while the monster was active, making labyrinth exploration much safer. Since humans couldn't level up, like in games, the military's approach to the deeper, more powerful parts of the labyrinth had hit a wall. But monsters could level up. This created a new cycle: train monsters, defeat strong monsters, acquire more cards, and repeat. This realization led to a profound conclusion: it didn't have to be the army exploring the labyrinths. The US, a land of freedom, was the first to open some labyrinths to civilians. They also established the Adventurers Guild of USA to oversee and assist these civilian explorers. This system proved so successful that it was soon implemented worldwide. Fast forward about 20 years since the first labyrinth appeared, and being an adventurer has become a dream job for many. This brings us to Yutamaro Kitagawa, a high school student feeling stuck in the mob character group of his class, either liked nor disliked. He describes his school as having a school caste, much like a social hierarchy, where natural talents like looks, athleticism, or communication skills determine your place. He and his friends, Higashino and Nishida, are at the bottom, just getting by. They see how Minamiyama, a former mob, like them, soared to the top of the school caste simply by revealing he was an active adventurer. This status, even if just from his parents paying for it, commands immense respect and fear. Yutamaro knows the risks. It costs money, could waste his youth, and might even fail. But he's seen a new path, a new way to rise that isn't dependent on innate talent but on effort and time. And so, with a quiet determination, Yutamaro whispers to himself, knowing the perilous path ahead: "I will become an adventurer today." After school, Yutamaro declined his friend's invitation and headed straight for the Adventurers Guild at Hakioji Station. As Yutamaro exited the ticket gate, he noticed a mix of people, some in regular clothes, others in tactical vests and military rucksacks, the adventurers. The public's reaction to adventurers varied: indifference, envy, or admiration. The female employee at the counter outlined the requirements. 100,000 yen registration fee. D rank or higher monster card. ID to confirm current address. Guardian's consent form for minors. Utamaro had everything except the card. Since he wasn't an adventurer yet, a staff member had to accompany him to the 5th floor card shop. Utamaro was introduced to Shigeno-san, a middle-aged man who would guide him. They took the stairs to the 5th floor, the only way to access it. The 5th floor was a stark contrast to the quiet 4th, bustling like a trading card store with adventurers intently examining card displays. Seated in a private booth, Shigeno-san began his explanation. Monster cards contain monsters from the labyrinth, which adventurers can materialize for combat. Cards only work within the labyrinth, in specific magical spaces, or during emergencies like Angalmore. Crucially, summoned monsters cannot harm their master, the user, and the master takes no damage as long as the card is active, as damage is channeled into the card itself. However, Shigeno-san delivered a surprising piece of information. Cards are not absolutely obedient. Personalities. Cards have varied personalities, from obedient to rebellious. Some become more compliant with use, others stop listening, and some even refuse combat except for self-defense. Resetting cards. While ownership rights can be relinquished to reset a card's level and memory, its personality remains. Incompatible owners can lead to irrepressibly rebellious. These unusable cards are sold at reduced prices, used as fishing bait in card packs because they're essentially worthless on their own. Shigeno-san also explained the general market for cards. Easily usable cards are priced high, while those less likely to sell are bundled into packs. He revealed that C-rank cards can fetch 10 to 100 million yen, and B-rank cards can go up to 10 billion yen, making the 1 million yen card packs a tempting but risky lottery. After the extensive explanation, Utamaro was ready to buy his card. He showed Shigeno-san the 1 million yen he had saved from months of grueling part-time work, a crystallization of sweat, tears, and childhood savings. Seeing the available D-rank cards, which were mostly unpopular monsters like orcs and ghouls and still cost at least 1 million yen, Utamaro made a bold decision. He decided to buy a card pack, despite Shigeno-san's strong warnings. Shigeno-san explained that while packs can contain rare B-rank or C-rank cards, the probability is extremely low, less than 1% for C-rank, about 30% for D-rank. He emphasized that these packs were designed for existing adventurers, not first-time registrants with limited budgets, as there was a 70% chance of getting unusable F or E rank cards. Utamaro, however, was resolute. He had invested too much to settle for a basic D-rank card. He needed a C or D-rank Monster Girl card, his minimum requirement for his grand plan. If this didn't work, he would simply give up on his ambition and lead a quiet high school life. This was his one shot. With trembling hands and a racing heart, Utamaro reached into the box of black painted card packs. He chose a pack from the right corner, 3rd row, 2nd from the back. He tore it open. Goblin F rank, Kobold D rank, Kuzi D rank. This was a mix of relief, he could register, and disappointment, lowers odds for better cards. Skeleton F rank, Goblin F rank, Zombie E rank, Roper F rank, Ghoul D rank. An unattractive female ghoul illustration, not the monster girl he hoped for. Goblin F rank. Utamaro felt a self-mocking smile spread across his face, believing this was his lot. He had gotten 2 D-rank cards, which was technically lucky for a pack, but not what he truly desired. He randomly flipped the last 2 cards. Then he saw it. One was an ordinary goblin card, but the other, a Zashiki Warashi. A girl in a kimono, with punkish black hair, raising her middle finger while resting a foot on a tamari ball. It was unmistakably a C-rank Monster Girl card. The next day, Utamaro walked to school, humming a tune. Tucked inside his uniform pocket were his newly acquired adventurer's license and several monster cards, including his prized C-rank Zashiki Warashi Monster Girl card. He couldn't help but smile, imagining the reactions of his classmates to such a rare and valuable card. His friend, Higashino, joined him, remarking on his unusually high spirits. Utamaro considered telling Higashino about becoming an adventurer, thinking it would be better for his existing friendships if they knew beforehand. He wanted to climb the school caste but also maintain his good relationships with Higashino and Nishida, unlike Minamiyama, who had cut ties with them after rising to the top. Just as he was about to reveal his secret, Nishida arrived, and their conversation shifted. Utamaro ended up missing his chance to tell them before they reached the classroom. Entering the classroom, Utamaro, Higashino, and Nishida noticed a commotion. Ono, a member of the top cast group, was surrounded by over half the class, looking more excited than usual. Higashino and Nishida whispered their disdain for Ono's. Then, Yutamaru heard something shocking. Ono was also an adventurer. Ono was boasting about being a one-star adventurer with a crappy card, but he emphasized that he had saved the money himself through a part-time job. He mentioned plans to go into the labyrinth with Minamiyama. Yutamaru realized he had been beaten to the punch. The good spot for announcing such news was only for the first or second person. Coming out now would make him seem like he was trying to steal Ono's thunder, especially since Ono was already part of the normie group, the popular crowd. Yutamaru's rare C-rank monster girl card would still have impact, but it would be hard to turn it into a positive impression if he appeared to be one-upping Ono. He knew that the classmates would likely side with Ono and label him as attention-seeking. Yutamaru concluded that simply being an adventurer with a rare card wasn't enough anymore. Something to differentiate himself and make him unique. Then, an idea struck him, like an electric current down his spine. He overheard Higashino and Nishida dismissing Ono as a less than 3-star adventurer who can't even make it to the Mount Colorado. This was it. Adventurer ranks in the Monster Coliseum, Mount Colorado. Being able to participate in Mount Colorado meant appearing on TV, gaining a social value comparable to a celebrity. This was the key. Yutamaru realized that while becoming an adventurer was his initial goal, he now had to aim higher. He resolved to become a 3-star adventurer no matter what it took, ideally before the next school year's class changes. This was the only way to truly distinguish himself and achieve his desired position within the school cast. After getting ready at home, Yutamaru immediately headed to the labyrinth located near Hakioji Station. This particular labyrinth, about a 10-minute walk from the station, was now housed within a convenience store known as Dungeon Mart. Upon entering Dungeon Mart, Yutamaru was greeted by an automated voice instructing adventurers to place their adventurer license on a panel. This system ensured that only licensed adventurers could access the labyrinth entrance at the back of the store. He then proceeded to a heavy steel door at the back. Touching his license to it, the door opened with a sound. This secondary authentication verified his adventurer rank was sufficient for this particular labyrinth, which was an F-rank labyrinth, the lowest tier. Beyond the door, Yutamaru found a small, two-tatami mat space containing a black swirling sphere, the entrance to the labyrinth. He bravely stepped into the warm, smoky-like sphere. He felt a momentary sensation of stepping off a staircase, and then found himself in the middle of a deep forest. The labyrinth was a small another world. Eternally daytime with a surprisingly warm temperature of nearly 30 degrees Celsius, despite it being autumn outside. Realizing his heavy clothing was a mistake, Yutamaru decided to summon his monsters immediately. He pulled out 3 cards. Zashiki Warashi C-rank, combat power, 250. Inborn skills. Good fortune is like a rope that ends in misfortune, can bestow luck/misfortune. Effectiveness depends on monster's liking for master. Hide and seek, invisibility and presence blocking. Elementary recovery magic, simple healing. Acquired skills, disadvantages. 0 existence, combat power reduced by 100, skills may miss or be downgraded. Significantly weakened from original state. Closed mind, rebellious heart, negative response to commands, positive response to free actions. Acquired from incompatible master, elementary attack magic, simple offensive magic. Yutamaru decided to summon his Zashiki Warashi and the Ghouler, due to her absolute obedience, skill, despite undead being difficult for beginners. In F-rank labyrinths, only 2 cards can be summoned simultaneously. He first summoned the Zashiki Warashi. A beautiful, doll-like little girl, about his sister's age, materialized. However, her demeanor was anything but cute. She had furrowed brows and a countryside Yankee attitude. She immediately challenged him. "What are you looking at, huh? Want me to kill you?" Yutamaru, momentarily intimidated, retorted that he wouldn't have gotten a rare card like her if she wasn't defective. The Zashiki Warashi sneered and disappeared, leaving him relieved she wasn't as tough as she seemed. Next, he summoned the Ghouler. A strikingly beautiful woman in revealing leather materialized. But her beauty was marred by decaying features, shaggy, damaged hair, black and purple skin with corpse spots, and completely bloodshot red eyes. The only blessing was the lack of odor. Yutamaru sighed, wishing she wasn't a ghoul, but held on to the hope of a future. Rank up into a vampire. Confident his preparations were complete, Yutamaru began walking, only to hear the Zashiki Warashi's disembodied laughter. He turned to find the Gular still standing in her initial position. He had to explicitly command, "Gular, follow me!" for her to move. The labyrinth was filled with the Zashiki Warashi's amused laughter, while Yutamaru realized the challenge of handling his new, uncooperative companions. Yutamaru cautiously walked through the forest-type labyrinth. The path was about 2 meters wide, overgrown with weeds, and flanked by seemingly impenetrable walls of trees. Adventurers were strictly forbidden from venturing off the path into these dense fields due to the risk of getting lost, as previous self-defense forces experiments had yielded no benefits from forcing a path through them. He had Gula leading the way, but a growing unease prompted him to ask the unseen Zashiki Warashi for information on nearby enemies. The Zashiki Warashi's response was sharp and disdainful. "Why do I have to answer such a question?" She materialized, openly expressing her hatred for humans and slaves who do as they are told, declaring, "Give up on seeing me as a fighting force. I don't even have the slightest bit of motivation to do something for you." She then vanished again. Yutamaru realized her hatred stemmed from her previous owner, whose treatment left lingering emotions despite the card's memory being reset upon changing masters. He considered dismissing her and summoning Kuzi, but the Zashiki Warashi's C-rank combat power offered better defense. Plus, he felt he would lose if he gave up on her. Feeling the heat of the labyrinth, which was surprisingly hot, unlike autumn outside, Yutamaru took a break to rehydrate with a sports drink and eat a chocolate bar. As he enjoyed his snack, the Zashiki Warashi, who had secretly returned, appeared and cautiously inquired about the sweet chocolate. Yutamaru, amused by her transparent curiosity, offered her a piece. She initially denied wanting it, but when he threatened to put it away, her sad eyes and frustrated "Baka!" suggested she genuinely desired it before disappearing again. Yutamaru realized that despite the initial failure, their squabble was a form of communication, and he now knew her weakness: sweets. Lost in thought, he failed to notice a gray wolf, a ferocious, toast-a-dog-sized beast, leaping from his blind spot. It attacked Gular, pinning her down and biting her neck. Gular, due to her absolute obedience skill, was completely unresisting without a direct command. Just as Yutamaru was panicking, a bullet of light shot from nowhere, hitting the wolf and tearing its hind leg to shreds. The Zashiki Warashi, who had silently reappeared beside him, then boredly commanded, "Don't just stand there. Move that little wooden doll, quick!" Yutamaru finally understood. The Zashiki Warashi had attacked the wolf, and Gula hadn't fought back because she hadn't been given an order. He immediately commanded, "Gula, if you can get up, fight back against the wolf right now. Use all your available skills." As if a switch flipped, Gula sprang up and attacked the injured wolf with surprising agility. She bit and devoured the wolf in a gruesome scene, leaving Yutamaru stunned. He thanked the Zashiki Warashi, who initially gave no reply, but then he remembered her fondness for sweets. Offering her the chocolate bar, she snatched it with its tsundere. "It's not like I really wanted this." Yutamaru checked on Gula. The wolf's bite marks on her neck had vanished, thanks to her corpse-eater skill, which allowed her to self-heal by consuming flesh. He instructed her to fight back immediately if attacked in the future, and to use all her skills. He then looked at the Zashiki Warashi, who was sadly staring at the empty chocolate wrapper. Amused by her childlike behavior, he promised her more sweets if she helped him again. Her response, "Once in a while, when I'm in the mood for some snacks, I'll think about it," showed a surprising willingness to cooperate. Mentally exhausted from the unexpected battle and the demands of the labyrinth, Yutamaru decided to head home. He realized his initial plan to fight 10 times and clear the first floor was naive. The mental strain of labyrinth exploration was far greater than he anticipated. He needed to refine Gula's commands and, more importantly, buy more sweets for his new, tsundere C-rank companion. After the school bell rang, signaling the end of class, Yutamaru sighed. He dreaded his next class, gym. As soon as the girls left, he started changing into his gym clothes with a grim expression. His dislike for gym class stemmed from the dreaded, form pairs, instruction, which always left him, as part of a trio with Higashino and Nishida, as the odd one out. Today, Yutamaru lost at rock paper scissors to Higashino and Nishida, meaning he was once again left to find a partner alone. He felt the familiar discouragement and misery, compounded by the perceived condescension from classmates. He silently cursed Minamiyama, who, by leaving their group of 4, had ruined their perfect pairing setup, forcing them into awkward trios. The irony was not lost on him. They had formed a group of 4 precisely to avoid such situations in school life. His frustration deepened when he saw Minamiyama casually partnering with Ono, the very person who had stolen his thunder by announcing his adventurer status first. As Utamaro desperately searched for a partner, he realized everyone else had already paired up. He was the only one left, feeling like an idiot under the imagined scorn of his classmates. Just then, his classmate Kanari burst in, late but boisterous, immediately looking for a partner. Utamaro's heart sank. Someone who tried to be part of the popular group but wasn't fully accepted. He was disliked for his condescending attitude towards those outside the normie group. When Nariken saw Utamaro was the only one left, he openly showed his disappointment, grumbling about his bad luck. Most classmates looked on sympathetically, but Nariken's group and Minamiyama smirked, clearly enjoying Utamaro's plight. After school, Utamaro declined an invitation from Higashino and Nishida to go karaoke. The humiliating gym class experience with Nariken, far from deterring him, fueled his determination. He realized that Nariken's condescension stemmed from perceived social hierarchy. If Utamaro could rise to the top of the school caste as an adventurer, he knew Nariken and his kind would flatter him, just as they did Ono and Minamiyama. This thought invigorated him. He immediately headed to the labyrinth, his resolve solidified. His companions for the day would be Gula and Kuzi. Upon summoning Kuzi, a cow-sized dog with beautiful emerald green fur and a swirling tail appeared. Kuzi, a Scottish dog fairy and protector of fairies, greeted him with a slightly nervous but polite demeanor, a stark contrast to Zashiki Warashi. Utamaro then turned to Gula, who appeared staring blankly. He had prepared a detailed list of commands during class, aiming to program her for more independent action, as ghouls, though not intelligent, possessed some memory. He reset her previous orders and began meticulously dictating new ones. Always follow him in the labyrinth. Always use her pheromone skill to mask her scent. Constantly search for enemy signs. His goal was to prevent situations like yesterday, where Gula stood idly unless given explicit instructions. He feared contradictory orders and continuously checked his memo to ensure consistency. With Gula's new orders in place, Utamaro asked Kuzi to spot for enemies, relying on her keen sense of smell, despite her nervous yes. They ventured deeper into the labyrinth. Soon, Kuzi's trembling voice announced, Master, I can smell the enemy. They are heading this way. Utamaro, confident in Kuzi's even-halved combat power against F-rank monsters, prepared for battle. 2 green goblins, riding wolves, emerged, their faces snarling. Gula swiftly attacked, but then abruptly stopped. Utamaro realized with frustration that his orders were flawed. Gula, faced with 2 enemies, didn't know which to prioritize. She became a punching bag, until she mechanically started counterattacking only those who hit her. Utamaro tried to involve Kuzi, yelling, Kuzi! What are you doing? Help Gula! But Kuzi, crippled by her cowardice skill, merely cowered, her combat power halved. Utamaro grimaced. This skill was worse than he thought. With Kuzi useless, Utamaro swapped her for Zashiki Warashi. But the Zashiki Warashi refused to help, stating, I don't want to. Why should I listen to your orders? She even rejected his offering of new convenience store pound cake, turning away with a pout. Frustrated, Utamaro decided on a desperate measure. He pulled out a baton he had brought as a last resort. Ignoring the Zashiki Warashi's bewildered questions, he charged the goblins. The impact of hitting a goblin's head with the baton sent numbness through his hand. Even small monsters possess tremendous physical strength. He commanded Gula to prioritize the wolves, while he faced the goblins. Terror gripped him as the goblins snarled, but he reminded himself of his card's barrier and his longer reach. He dodged one attack but blocked another with his baton, numbing his hand and forcing him to drop it. Realizing the danger, he almost fled, but seeing Gula still fighting the remaining wolf, he knew he couldn't abandon her. He bit his lip, retrieved his baton, and braced himself, vowing to buy Gula 10 more seconds. Suddenly, light bullets pierced the goblins' heads, splattering brain fluid. Utamaro looked around, confused, then realized Zashiki Warashi had made a move. Gula, meanwhile, had finished off the first wolf and was now devouring the second. Utamaro slumped, exhausted and shaken. He reflected on his naivety, realizing that exploring labyrinths was a fight for survival, not a lucrative RPG game. He laughed at his self-mockery. The Zashiki Warashi, now sitting on the ground, looked grim. When Utamaro tried to offer her sweets again, she sharply cut him off, demanding to know why he fought for Guler, calling cards expendable items. Utamaro patiently explained that Gula was an important asset and that his own life wasn't truly in danger thanks to the card barrier. After a moment of thought, Sashiki Warashi, still grim, simply said, "Is that enough? Then it's time to go home. I'm already tired today." Utamaro was surprised by her sudden exhaustion after just one fight, but he knew he needed to refine Gula's orders and figure out how to use Kuzi effectively. As he slowly got up, Sashiki Warashi, with a grin, reminded him, "I haven't received any sweets as a reward." Utamaro sighed, recognizing her predictable tsundere. He decided to prepare more snacks for her next time. He checked Gula's condition. The wolf's bite marks were gone, thanks to her regeneration skill. He reiterated her new orders, and she nodded. The school bell chimed, signaling the start of lunch break. Utamaro, fighting off sleepiness, was eating lunch with his friends, Higashino and Nishida. "What's up, Maro? You look so sleepy," Higashino observed. Nishida added, "You always look sleepy these days. Are you that busy with your part-time job?" Utamaro hesitated. He'd actually quit his supermarket job right before becoming an adventurer, as it offered no real benefits beyond many shifts. He couldn't tell them the truth without inviting questions about his sleepiness, so he fabricated a story. "I've recently been assigned to supervise 3 new employees all at once. So I'm probably feeling a little more tired than usual." Higashino sympathized, finding the idea daunting. Nishida, with a nasty smile, asked if the new employees were cute girls. Utamaro internally acknowledged they were indeed cute girls, a sassy loli, Zashiki Warashi, a corpse beauty, Guler, and a non-humanoid form, Kuzi. He simply said, "They are girls indeed." Higashino, eager for a girlfriend, pressed for details. "Oh? And what about the face? What about the face? Cute? Pretty?" Utamaro replied. Well, on the outside. One of them is the beautiful type and the other 2 are the cute type." He secretly thought. "I'm not lying." His friends reacted with excitement, calling it the best, and joking about it being like an erotic game. Utamaro complained that it wasn't good at all. One was a jerk, who wouldn't listen, another remembered orders but lacked independent thought, and the last was earnest but lacked confidence and courage. Higashino and Nishida looked sympathetic, noting his handful of new hires and making them reconsider their own part-time job aspirations. Utamaro, wanting to encourage Nishida, added that his workplace was tougher than most, and a 2 or 3 day week job would be fine. "Ugh, I'm so sleepy I'm dizzy. I'm going to sleep in the infirmary for a while. I'm sorry, but please tell the teacher," he told his friends, waving them off. He arrived at the infirmary, hoping for a beautiful, erotic nurse like in light novels, but found the typical older woman absent. As he debated whether to simply lie down, a curtain opened, revealing Kid Shinomiya, the most beautiful girl in his grade and a member of the normie group. At the top of the school cast, Shinomiya-san, rumored to be an amateur model, was a gyro type girl with daily makeup, ash gold hair, and stylish scrunchies. She was the leader of the gyro faction, and Utamaro, shady mob, felt intimidated by her, partly because he was a cherry boy, inexperienced with girls. To his surprise, Shinomiya-san smiled innocently and pointed to the bed next to hers. "You're not feeling well, you should take a rest," she said. Utamaro timidly lay down, unable to sleep with his natural enemy beside him. The silence was agonizing. Utamaro felt pathetic, acknowledging his fear despite his desire to become an adventurer to overcome such anxieties. He wondered if he was incapable of becoming a normie. Shinomiya-san broke the silence, making him jump. She laughed, then asked, "What's that?" "That's funny. If it's not wrong, your name is Maro, right? That's an unusual name, isn't it?" Utamaro flusteredly explained Maro was a nickname, and his real name was Utamaro Kitagawa. She recognized the name, associating it with the Edo period painter, a common misconception. He clarified that his parents, Aika and Shoma, combined characters from their names, only realizing the painter connection after his birth. Shinomiya-san found this amusing, and as they continued talking, Utamaro felt himself relax. He found her surprisingly easy to talk to, shedding his usual, different creature, perception of her. She asked if she could call him Maro, to which he agreed. She then asked if he had a part-time job. Utamaro, momentarily stunned, admitted he did. Shinomiya-san confirmed she'd seen him working hard and sweaty at the supermarket she frequented, noting how often he was there. He admitted to working 5 days a week at the supermarket and other jobs on weekends, which shocked her. When she asked why he works so much, Utamaro hesitated, then decided to be more open than he was with his male friends. "I've got a goal. I want to invest in that," he stated, looking at the ceiling. He reflected on his life, always on the periphery, never at the center of the class. He never felt dissatisfied, believing he wasn't meant for the spotlight. But then Minamiyama, a definite mob character, in terms of looks, academics, athletics, and personality, became an adventurer and ascended to the normie group. This truly shocked Utamaro. While Higashino and Nishida felt disgust, Utamaro felt a grudging respect for Minamiyama breaking through his inherent mob nature. He realized he harbored a longing to be a normie. For the first time, he decided to push his limits and try to change. His attempt was ongoing. As these thoughts drifted through his mind, his eyelids grew heavy, and he finally succumbed to sleep. As he drifted off, he thought he heard Shinomiya-san say, "It's kind of cool to say something like that." It had been a week since Utamaro became an adventurer, and through his daily dives into the dungeon, he was slowly figuring out how to interact with his cards. Utamaro's third card, Kuzi, was a majestic, ox-sized dog with emerald green fur. Kuzi excelled as a scout due to her keen sense of smell and ability to mask her presence, giving early warnings about enemy groups. Utamaro found her eagerness to please, wagging her tail when praised, endearing, contrasting her with his family dog, Maru, who seemed to disrespect him. However, Kuzi had a critical flaw, her cowardice skill. When Utamaro suggested she fight, she'd tremble and curl her tail, completely unwilling to engage. This was a bigger disadvantage than Zashiki Warashi's defiance. While he considered whipping her into shape, he chose not to. For now, he would use her as a scout, then switch her out for Gulag during combat. He rationalized that her timidness made her more sensitive to enemy presence, enhancing her scouting ability, and he didn't want to risk making her unusable even as a scout by forcing her to fight. Zashiki Warashi, ever present but unseen, frequently made sarcastic remarks about Utamaro's kindness towards his cards, suggesting he would eventually discard them for stronger ones. She argued that using low-rank cards for scouting was more economical, as their loss had minimal financial impact and could even serve as distant alerts for powerful enemies. Utamaro, however, countered that his approach of training them was superior to using them up and throwing them away. Though he silently admitted his financial constraints also played a role in not wanting to dispose of even F-rank cards. Utamaro swapped Kuzi for Gulag to prepare for an approaching enemy group of 2 unarmed goblins and 1 battle wolf. Gulag, now equipped with a slingshot and stun rod, monster-specific gear that humans couldn't handle, appeared, immediately took a boxing stance, and assessed her surroundings. Utamaro tested her new programming. "Let me explain the situation. Currently, we are approaching the group of enemies that Kuzi found. There are 3 of them. 2 goblins and 1 battle wolf. The enemy probably hasn't noticed us yet. The distance is just outside the battle wolf's sense of smell. You can use whatever tools you have. Now then, what should you do?" Gulag, in an emotionless voice, recited her pre-programmed response. "Yes, master, I will answer. This situation can be applied to situation number 27. Therefore, I will sneak in at the slingshot range and snipe the battle wolf first. Next, I will load the slingshot and attack the enemy group. After that, regardless of the outcome, move on to the destruction of the enemy group with the stun rod." Utamaro approved, reminding her to record the battle with her helmet camera. As Gulag saluted and departed, the Zashiki Warashi appeared, groaning in a rare moment of praise. "That wooden doll looks so different. It's hard to believe it's a ghoul." Utamaro proudly explained that Gulag's intelligence was improving, though she still lacked true ego. She could combine pre-programmed options but couldn't create new ones. His continuous input of various scenarios and choices was her experience, allowing her to respond effectively to unfamiliar situations. He then showed Zashiki Warashi Gulag's card. Zashiki Warashi was astonished by the 2 new skills, as skill acquisition usually took months, or required rare, critical situations. Utamaro attributed it to the unique combination of Gulag's undead nature, a blank space, and absolute obedience, which allowed permanent imprinting of commands. Ambush, gained from consistently using pheromones for stealth attacks. Hollow heart, described as a heart with an infinitely thin ego. Resistance to mental abnormalities, negative response for free actions. This indicated the beginning of an ego for the lower-ranked undead. Utamaro, feeling proud, prodded Zashiki Warashi. "How's that? I'm not that bad of a newbie, am I?" She retorted. "Ha, you're going to have to break through at least one dungeon before you can say something so cheeky, fledgling-chan." Utamaro conceded. He had been exploring this F-rank dungeon for a week, slowly making his way through. An F-rank dungeon normally takes about 3 days to clear, or even 1 day with a C-rank card like Zashiki Warashi. His slower pace was due to his extensive Gula training and his decision to navigate without buying expensive maps or boss strategies, believing self-reliance would foster growth. He was currently on the 5th floor and intended to find the staircase to the lowest floor, where the boss resides, today. He was confident in Gula's ability to defeat the boss, given her destructive power and self-healing. Dungeon bosses, typically 1 rank higher than the dungeon's usual monsters, a D-rank kobold or hellhound in this F-rank dungeon, are also empowered by the dungeon itself, gaining enhanced abilities and the power to summon subordinates. However, the rank difference still made them manageable. Gula returned from her battle, explaining that her initial sniping attempt failed due to a goblin's interference, forcing her into close combat. Utamaro accepted her report, recognizing that while she won, the plan hadn't gone perfectly. This reinforced his decision not to challenge the boss today, but instead focus on finding the stairs. Zashiki Warashi continued to mock him for not challenging the boss, but Utamaro shrugged her off, reminding her that she wouldn't fight on the front lines anyway, being engrossed in his manga. Their arguments over the manga's themes. The beauty and ugliness of human beings, the essence of life exists in both humans and monsters, showed their evolving relationship, a mix of genuine connection and playful bickering. That day, Utamaro prepared more carefully than usual for his dungeon exploration, packing a charged stun rod, monster slingshot, tear spray, goggle masks, and other useful items. This was the day he planned to finish his first dungeon exploration. It was also a school vacation, providing ample time for trial and error. He had no intention of spending any more time on this F-rank dungeon, which he had already spent over a week exploring. Once cleared, he also planned to start buying dungeon information to save time and learn about various enemy types. As Utamaro gathered his gear, his younger sister, Ai, came downstairs, still sleepy but radiating cuteness with her fluffy chestnut hair and child actress-like face. She was adored in the neighborhood, unlike him, who often heard remarks about her cuteness contrasting with his perceived lack of charm. "Good morning," he said, wiping away tears that had inexplicably welled up. Ai, sitting slumped on the sofa, suddenly perked up. By any chance, Oni-chan, are you going to the dungeon?" she asked, eyes shining. "Yeah, I'm going to the dungeon. Today's the day I'm going to finish exploring this one dungeon." Ai adorably begged to come along. Utamaro, however, firmly refused. No. Of course I can't. No one other than adventurers should enter the dungeon. If I bring in civilians, they will confiscate my cart. He explained the strict rules for adventurers. Ai, sounding just like him, wished she could become an adventurer too. Bragged to everyone in my class. Utamaro wryly noted the genetic similarity in their thought processes, despite their differing social statuses. Ai, because of her looks and personality, was already at the top of her class caste. Well, it's okay. Right now, Oni-chan is the only one who is an adventurer. To be honest, I really love Oni-chan because you're kind. I thought you were a little dull. But Oni-chan is cool these days and I'm very satisfied. Ai chirped. Utamaro chuckled at her transparent evaluation, acknowledging that his new adventurer status had at least improved his standing in the family caste. He waved goodbye to Ai and hurried out. After a week of continuous dungeon visits, the journey to the lowest floor was remarkably smooth. Using the Adventurers app for the map, he took the shortest route, largely avoiding enemies. It took him about 5 hours to reach the stairs to the lowest floor, a stark contrast to the week he'd spent previously. He realized the value of information and wondered if his strange commitment to a no-info run was a waste of time. He quickly rationalized it as gaining invaluable experience. He decided to take a short break with Kuzi and Zashiki Warashi before entering the final floor. He gave Zashiki Warashi a costly, limited edition strawberry mousse from the convenience store, even though she hadn't worked hard. She reacted dramatically, spouting gourmet manga-influenced praises for the dessert. Utamaro, reflecting on his journey, admitted the physical and mental exhaustion of being an adventurer, and the difficulty of managing his 3 challenging cards. His income was still low, and he hadn't achieved his goal of rising in his class caste. Despite these dissatisfactions, he felt an unprecedented sense of fulfillment. He also noted that Kuzi was cute, and Zashiki Warashi's impertinent obsession with sweets was quite charming, a thought he quickly retracted after she rudely demanded another mousse. He firmly told Zashiki Warashi there were no more sweets, and that break was over. As they bantered, Kuzi timidly reminded him of her role. He gently switched her out for Gula, who appeared ready for battle. With renewed determination, Utamaro stepped into the lowest level, feeling a sudden, chilling shift in the air. The summer forest atmosphere transformed into a dark, cold, densely vegetated area with a faint sewer-like stench. An inexplicable sense of incongruity washed over him. He instinctively wanted to retreat but realized the stairs had vanished. Panic set in. He'd never heard of a dungeon preventing retreat from its lowest floor, meaning this was unique to this dungeon. He cursed his decision not to research it. Zashiki Warashi, seeing his distress, gripped his shoulder. "Hey, get a hold of yourself! You've noticed, haven't you? This place isn't normal." Utamaro, still reeling, muttered about the stairs disappearing and how he never would have picked this dungeon. Zashiki Warashi, however, sounded puzzled. "Ah? What are you talking about? There's no way you'll be able to detect a boss who can isolate a floor from the beginning. Seriously, get a grip or you'll die." Her words jolted him. A boss that can isolate a floor? This wasn't a normal dungeon boss. Suddenly, the terrifying realization hit him. This is the Walking Alone Reaper, irregular encounter. He remembered the irregular encounters, unique monsters that roamed dungeons, devoured original bosses, and trapped adventurers on the lowest floor. They were the #1 cause of death for adventurers, unpredictable misfortunes. While their combat power was suppressed to match the dungeon, their A-rank skills were not. He recalled the horrific historical accounts of irregular encounters during the Engalmor period, causing mass hallucinations, Urashima Taro, rapidly aging thousands, and Frog Prince, causing victims to burst from within. He was trapped in a cage set by such a monster. He fought off a surge of unconsciousness, knowing fainting meant death. He desperately tried to use his adventurer's license to send a rescue request to the guild, but it failed. "Damn it! It's not working! It won't reach!" The entire space was isolated. His last lifeline was gone. Zashiki Warashi calmly advised him to call Kuzi for scouting. With trembling hands, he switched Gula for Kuzi. Kuzi, initially dazed, instantly reacted to his command. Master. What is this?" she asked. "It's an irregular encounter. Use your nose to find the enemy right away." Kuzi's eyes widened. Over there. There's a scent other than us." Zashiki Warashi immediately shot a light bullet in that direction, hitting a large, hideous rat. "A rat?" Utamaro questioned. Zashiki Warashi confirmed it was a vassal, an inexhaustible, endless enemy. The putrid stench of the dead rat suggested their widespread presence. Utamaro, shaking, suggested they push forward. Zashiki Warashi remained silent. As they proceeded, Zashiki Warashi silently dispatched the occasional rats, cooperating without reward, much to Utamaro's relief. Suddenly, Kuzi whimpered. Master, I can smell blood." Utamaro's heart pounded. Kuzi pointed to the dense trees. As they approached, Utamaro gasped and covered his mouth. It was the dismembered corpse of a blonde, freckled, 10-year-old Caucasian boy. The iron smell of blood and the stench of organs filled the air. Utamaro tried to rationalize it as a dungeon illusion, a stunt to scare adventurers. But Zashiki Warashi, frowning, declared, "This is a real corpse. There is no doubt about it." "I know. And what the hell, this kid still has his soul trapped in here." Utamaro slowly processed her words. "Engalmor," she continued, "that's what you call it, isn't it? This must be the catch of that time. They take it home and use it as a trophy." Utamaro questioned her. "Engalmor, you say? Do you know how long it's been since the last one?" Zashiki Warashi pointed to the sun. "Time does not pass in the dungeon," she said briefly. Utamaro's vision blurred. The world spun. He started hallucinating, seeing the boy's eyes, hearing him say, "I don't want to die." He vomited violently, tears streaming down his face, until his stomach felt empty. Kuzi rubbed his back. After the nausea subsided, Zashikiwarashi offered him water. "Have a drink." "My treat." Utamaro, hoarsely, noted. "I'm the one who bought it though." Zashikiwarashi chuckled, then said, "Oh, you are feeling better now? That's why you're my master." Utamaro was confused by her uncharacteristic cooperativeness. She then declared, "Now then, what are you going to do? If you want, I can go beat him by myself this time." Her unexpected offer made Utamaro's heart swell. This impertinent brat was trying to cheer him up to help him. Tears welled in his eyes, and he quickly looked down, pretending to rub them. He stood up on trembling legs. "If you do that, I have to buy an unthinkable amount of sweets. There aren't that many sweets in this town." "Well, then what are you going to do?" she challenged. "I'll come with you, and we'll go on as usual." Zashikiwarashi feigned disappointment. "That's a pity. It was the perfect opportunity to bankrupt the master I hate." "You can't bankrupt me," Utamaro said, puffing out his chest. "Because I have a Zashikiwarashi." As they made their way through the grim forest, Utamaro and Zashikiwarashi chatted to keep the tension at bay. Kuzi diligently scouted, and Zashikiwarashi dispatched rats, while Utamaro held his tear spray ready. Zashikiwarashi suddenly asked if Utamaro liked girls. He admitted to having an unrequited crush on a girl in his grade who was pretty cute even in the whole grade, a beautiful face, with a quiet personality, who never badmouthed anyone. As he described her, he saw another dead child, a blonde girl, dismembered and staked to trees, smelling of blood and feces. He imagined himself in her place and quickly looked away, reassuring himself that he had Zashikiwarashi. He continued adding, "She's petite and slender, but she's got huge breasts. Probably the biggest in all grades." Zashikiwarashi, disgusted, kicked a rat to death. She called him a pervert and asked if he had a chance with her. Utamaro clarified it was more admiration than love, a desire to be with such a girl. They passed more gruesome scenes, a skinned boy, a girl with her head in her stomach, a boy with stretched limbs. Then Utamaro heard laughter. Kuzi's confused voice broke his trance. No one was laughing. He realized it was an auditory hallucination, a dungeon gimmick targeting him, perhaps from the trapped children's souls. He forced himself to stay calm. He shared his plan to try to confess to her by Christmas, an adventurer's goal. Zashikiwarashi joked about him dying before then, but quickly retracted it, saying, "How can you die when I'm with you?" This casual exchange, despite the horrifying surroundings, helped him cope. He recognized it as an escape from reality, like characters in movies who joke during crises. He understood now. "I would go crazy if I didn't make even one joke." He also recognized his normalcy bias, a calm analysis despite the extreme stress. Kuzi's whimpering cry broke his concentration. The dungeon boss is close. We will meet in a few minutes." Utamaro's legs trembled. Kuzi suddenly slammed her head to the ground, begging to be returned to her card. Please bring me back. I can't be a fighting force. I can't move my legs any further. I know I have to fight. But even though I think so, if I face the enemy, I won't be able to fight." Her body shook, her tail curled, and she sobbed. Utamaro gently stroked her back, realizing he finally understood her fear. He'd previously dismissed her as useless, even planning to replace her. But now, facing death, he understood that dying was terrifying for both humans and monsters. He had been mocking those who were facing their fears with only their bodies to protect them. He saw his own fear in Kuzi. "You've endured your fears and guided us well until now. You can go back," he told her. Kuzi howled. I'm so pathetic. I want courage." He told her, inwardly, that they would find courage together, then returned her to her card. Zashikiwarashi's sarcastic voice, unusually kind, said, "You're so sweet. Are you trying to be a kind master who cares about your cards? Isn't it a waste of time and effort just to switch to cards that are stronger and easier to use later anyway?" Utamaro turned to her. "No. I'm going to keep using her. I'm going to keep her, enhancing her, upgrading her, for a long, long time." He didn't need to add, "And you, too?" As they neared the enemy, a joyful flute melody confirmed his suspicion. The boss was the Pied Piper of Hamelin, an irregular encounter. Though not the most famous, its obscurity made it dangerous due to lack of information. Utamaro took a deep breath, his thoughts now clearer. Let's go. He instructed Zashiki Warashi to move freely while he focused on Gula. They found the Pied Piper by a river, playing his flute amidst piles of rotting meat being devoured by rats. The scene was hellish, but Utamaro quickly regained composure. Go, Gula! Gula fired her slingshot, but the bullet was blocked by a barrier of musical notes. Utamaro realized the barrier might be sound-related. The Pied Piper, with vertically arranged eyes, dozens of small eyeballs, and double lips, spoke. His body emitted a sewer-like stench that made Utamaro grateful for his goggles and mask. The Pied Piper began a dramatic monologue, recounting the story of a man who used rats to extort a town. As he put the flute to his mouth, countless rats charged, emitting a polyphonic performance of unpleasant cries. Gula lifted Utamaro to her shoulders, and he sprayed the rats with tear spray. The rats screamed and thrashed, but more kept coming. The Pied Piper continued his tale, describing how the man lured the rats to the river with his flute. Then, with the song, March of the Lemmings, the rat reinforcements stopped, and even the existing rats retreated. Utamaro realized the Pied Piper could only attack according to his story. The Pied Piper then recounted the mayor's betrayal and the man's fury. Please listen. Invitation to the circus, he announced, blowing his flute in high spirits. Nothing happened to Utamaro or his cards. Utamaro grinned. His countermeasure had worked. Suspecting a sound attack, he'd given his monster cards intercoms that blocked external sound while transmitting his commands. Since a monster card on the field protects the master from attacks, he was unaffected. The Pied Piper, enraged, transformed his flute into a scythe. He planned to switch to melee combat. Just then, a light bullet from Zashiki Warashi struck him. The Reaper dodged, revealing a crucial weakness. The barrier only appeared when he held the flute. Utamaro realized his mistake. In other words, that barrier only appears when he has the flute. An ambush is smart, the Reaper growled. He's coming! Gula, Phase 3. Attack! Utamaro commanded. Gula charged. Zashiki Warashi, now attacking from all directions, rained light bullets on the Reaper, keeping him defensive. As he dodged a light bullet, he exposed his leg, which was hit. He fell to one knee, and Gula struck his shoulder with the stun rod, discharging electricity. The Reaper stiffened for a moment. That instant was enough. Idiot! Zashiki Warashi muttered. A light bullet pierced the Reaper's chest. His eyes widened in disbelief. He leaned back and disappeared. Silence. Utamaro's heart pounded. After a moment, he whispered, Did we beat him? Zashiki Warashi confirmed. Yeah, we won. Zashiki Warashi and Gula appeared beside him. The rats were gone. They had won. He survived. Utamaro sank to the ground, overwhelmed by relief, then a sense of accomplishment far greater than any test score. He felt confident, even talented, having defeated an irregular encounter without prior information. He wanted to boast about his cards, especially Zashiki Warashi, who had kept him sane and delivered crucial blows. Then he froze. The Reaper was behind her, raising his scythe, a savage grin on his face. Surprise! Entertainment should be unexpected. Stop! Before he could scream, the scythe swung down. At that moment, time seemed to slow down. The scythe swung towards Zashiki Warashi, who tried to dodge but was too slow. Utamaro's mind screamed, dreading the loss of his rearguard card, especially with the unknown effects of the scythe. He saw frustration and tears in Zashiki Warashi's eyes. The slowed world ended abruptly. Something pushed Zashiki Warashi, and a body was sliced in half, falling to the ground. Utamaro instantly knew Gula had protected Zashiki Warashi, taking the blow. A wave of shared anger, an invisible line, connecting them, surged between Utamaro and Zashiki Warashi. Zashiki Warashi, now fueled by their combined rage, unleashed a barrage of light bullets, but the Reaper suddenly vanished. Utamaro realized with a jolt, teleportation. The Reaper hadn't died, it had a hidden skill. He should have noticed when the rats disappeared without dropping items earlier. He also understood why the Reaper, despite a huge hole in its chest, was still alive. It was an undead-type monster that wouldn't die unless its head was crushed. This explained the bizarre stench. Utamaro cursed his inexperience. He picked up Gula's upper half. Her eyes, though typically blank, now held a pleading look. He hadn't ordered her to protect Zashiki Warashi. She had acted on her own volition. This was a clear sign of her ego growing. He had to save her. Remembering undead regenerate by eating corpses, he quickly gathered dead rats, aligned Gula's severed body, and fed them to her. She ate without instruction, confirming her burgeoning self-awareness. When her body partially reconnected, he held her back from moving, knowing she was still too weak. The Pied Piper's unfolding performance, and the power of sound. Meanwhile, the Reaper, unfazed, continued his performance. He recounted how the Piper led the children into the forest, with rats blocking the adults. "Tonight is a feast," he declared, and countless musical notes burst from the hole in his chest, forming Lamb's dinner party. These notes, which looked like children's souls, screamed as they attacked Zashiki Warashi. She dodged, identifying them as sound that is alive. Gular, still wounded, tried to move. "Master, your order." She spoke for the first time, her ego rapidly growing. Utamaro felt both joy and hesitation, not wanting to risk her. He then noticed Kuzi's card glowing faintly on his chest. "Gular, come back. You did a good job. Leave the rest to me and the others," Utamaro said, returning her to her card. The little hero. Skill was her newfound courage, a symbol of hope. Kuzi charged the Reaper. He swung his scythe, but Kuzi, moving with surprising speed, leaped, gouging his upper arm. When she landed, a musical note, a phantom-tide monster, clung to her arm. Zashiki Warashi, however, intervened, obliterating the notes and clearing Kuzi's arm. "Leave the notes to me. It's a little annoying, but I'll leave the punching of that bastard to you," she declared. Kuzi, with a growl, resumed her assault. The Reaper, though skilled, was outmatched by Kuzi's superior physical abilities and the difference in rank. The silver whirlwind of Kuzi's attacks, combined with Zashiki Warashi intercepting the notes, tilted the battle in their favor. Just as victory seemed certain, the Reaper began a new verse, narrating how the townspeople, angry at the mayor, dismembered him and left his 2 children, one blind and one crippled. As he spoke, with the ominous declaration, "The Pied Piper of Hamelin," the notes screamed deafeningly. Utamaro covered his ears, but Kuzi, without an intercom, bled from her ears and swayed. Zashiki Warashi also collapsed, black haze clinging to her eyes and legs, a status ailment imitating the anecdote of the blind and crippled children left behind. In an instant, the situation reversed. The Grim Reaper, smiling, disappeared and reappeared behind Utamaro. "The concert is now over. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll take your life for the payment," he said, raising his scythe. Utamaro's mind raced. An attack on him would damage all his cards. He tried to dodge, but the Reaper moved too fast. Just as he thought he was doomed, he slipped on rat fluids. This stroke of good fortune from Zashiki Warashi's misfortune and fortune are like a rope. Skill saved him. The scythe missed his head as he landed clumsily. Green bullets, presumably from Kuzi, struck the Reaper, severing his arms and scythe. Kuzi landed lightly. The Reaper, genuinely surprised, exclaimed, "Hero skills, huh?" He recognized Kuzi's resistance to the status ailment, possibly aided by Zashiki Warashi's luck. The Reaper, laughing, conceded, "It can't be helped. No need to pay this time. I'll take it next time we meet. No matter how many times we meet, I'll step on you," Utamaro retorted. "What a customer." The Pied Piper's head exploded, and his body crashed onto Utamaro, splattering rotting blood. The body and blood faded, leaving a blood-red pebble and a vertical flute. "I am so tired." Utamaro lay sprawled, finally victorious. Kuzi rushed to him, her timid face back. "Master! Are you okay?" Zashiki Warashi, her sarcastic mode returned, quipped. "You're slacking. You probably didn't fight. Rather, you should be thanking me for all my hard work." Utamaro, relieved they were both fine, rose. I know. I've thought of a proper reward," he told them. Zashiki Warashi, eagerly expecting a candy house, was reprimanded by Kuzi for demanding a reward. Utamaro, with a wry smile, explained that the reward was just a name. Naming a card was a kind of contract that made it impossible to sell or initialize it, thereby disqualifying an adventurer from the common practice of selling cards to buy higher-ranked ones, like asset management. However, naming also allowed for revival. A monster, if its card remained a soul card, could be resurrected by consuming other cards of the same gender and race. He realized this was why Shigeno-san had warned him not to name them, expecting him to sell Zashiki Warashi. He reflected on how his choice to keep these difficult cards, rather than selling them for easier ones, had likely saved his life against the irregular encounter. He was grateful his first cards were these cards, confirming he would never let them go. He named Zashiki Warashi, Renj, inspired by the vermilion tint in her black hair, reminding him of a lotus flower. He named Kuzi, Yuki, in katakana, symbolizing various meanings, courage, hope, and kindness. He also decided on a name for Guler, Eliza, inspired by the Pygmalion myth, a doll turning human from love, and the movie, My Fair Lady. Yuki's eyes moistened with gratitude, her tail wagging wildly. Renj, in classic tsundere fashion, scoffed. Now I have to take care of this incompetent master even if I die from this. A statement Utamaro and Yuki understood as affection. As Renj playfully plucked Yuki's fur, Utamaro turned to the dungeon's reward. Floating before them were an ornate treasure chest and a return gate. The corpses had vanished, and the forest's atmosphere was returning to normal. Utamaro's heart pounded as he reached for the chest, commonly known as the disappointment box. Renj jumped on his back, admonishing him for trying to open it alone. He felt her soft body, warmth, and floral scent. She then blessed him with her skill, enveloping him in a faint light. He opened the box, finding white pebbles, white magic stones, worth about 60,000 yen for an F-rank dungeon, and test tube-sized bottles. Potions, steadily dropping in market price due to increasing supply. Potions, though once hailed as miracle cures, were of little use to their party given their existing recovery abilities. He considered giving them to his mom or sister instead of selling them. The meager rewards for such a life-threatening ordeal made him understand the nickname, Disappointment Box. Renj, too, kicked the box in frustration. But Utamaro felt a strange sense of conviction and security. He mused that perhaps his prior immense luck in acquiring his cards had been offset by encountering the irregular Pied Piper, making these pebbles and potions perfectly fitting. Ultimately, he realized he had gained something that money can't buy anymore. The unwavering loyalty and bond with his named cards, Renj and Yuki, and soon Eliza.